everyone. This is Dee. I am here. I'm going to be recording this week because I have another commitment with family. I have a niece who is getting her captain bars and a celebration that goes along with that in the U.S. Air Force, and also celebrating her engagement. So I am going to be gone, and I didn't want to take another time completely off so that you could keep working on your project. So I'm going to record this today. So thank you for your understanding with family commitments that come up kind of out of the blue. But we are very excited in our family for her accomplishments and for her journey ahead. So it's going to be all good. So today we are working on flying geese and a patchwork block. So I'm going to go through again a little bit with how to tackle that crossing the seams. If you are hand quilting, I'll show you a method that I like to use often with the flying geese, and also I want to share some pinning points with you. So we'll just jump right into this and get going, and a couple of tools that I will be using. So the flying geese block is on page 46, and there are going to be 3 sets. So you would be making these supposedly out of 3 different fabrics. So one fabric you only make 4 and sew them together. I have already done that on this one, and so have sewed the 4 of those together already. Trying to keep up with everything. And then the second one, you will make a set of 4, and then you will create a set of 2 with the same fabric. These 2 are going to be extended into the border at later on. And then same thing with this one. These 2 will go into the border. So this is a 3rd fabric, create 4, and then a grouping of 2 for your flying geese. Then the second block is called the patch star. There are 16 squares in the center of this that you would sew together. So you make more flying geese. You'll have 4 more with this block, and you can create them in the same way that you did all of these. And again, if you want to create them in a different way than what she is showing in the book, that's great. Go for it. I'm going to be creating mine a little bit different than she did as well, except for the ones that I hand quilt. And then it goes through and you create your rows, put your rows together, get that, and then the star, the patch star, is formed with your 4 flying geese, your 4 corners, and sewing those together. And again, you can make templates for the flying geese for this block, as well as and on this side, this is a double-sided, because here you have the center of your flying geese. On this side you have your corners, your half square triangles, and this is for the center part, the patchwork part of it. So with that, I'm going to set that aside for right now. And I want to get started, first of all, with the hand-sewn flying geese. I have marked, both of my sides. When I am marking a dark fabric, I really like to use the sew line pen. The lead in it stays put, but yet it will wipe off, and it shows up very well. I don't think you can probably see that on screen because my thread is running over it, but I have marked it with that. And then on this one, just to show you the difference, if you want to mark on the white, I've already sewn the one side on. I'm working on this side, and I want to get to the point of how to cross that over and create that. One of the things that I do want to say to you as you are making, your flying geese, and if you choose to do it with the template method, and you are using and working with the bias like I am right now, you really want to make sure that you do not pull or stretch that. I gently just rub my thumbnail over it to make sure that the thread is flat. Again, because I've gone through it, I'm going to take a back stitch to lock it in place one more time. Gives me a little bit of air of confidence there. So I'm sewing again, just that. And now we're coming to the part where we're gonna sew right up. So I'm going to take a back stitch, and then I am going to sew right up to my seam line and basically come up on this side of my stitch line. And I don't think that you can see that on screen, but I've come up right there. Now I want this to go back because I don't want to catch it on the wrong point. And I'm going to take my needle and take it through to the other side, and I want to come up from that side to this side, right where my thread stopped. And again, I think you can see it, but maybe not. So I got that off just a little bit trying to hold it for the camera. So I'm gonna take that out because I want my seams to match there. And go under it, come up a little bit beyond where that seam meets on that side. I want to make sure this is nice and flat. And now I'm going to take a back stitch into this side so that holds it in place. And I just stuck my finger. Try not to do that. It kind of hurts. All right, so I'm taking another back stitch. It's firmly in place. I can tie that off now, and I'm just tying a simple knot at that end, at that intersection. And now you can see that both of my sides, this is that 1/4 inch open seam here and on this side, so that when you're sewing them together and you're going to be sewing across there, you will catch that. You're going to sew with this being up, you're going to sew down, catch it, come up on this side, and then continue sewing across, okay? When you put your next block on. So I've got that ready to go. Again, I'm not going to press it. I might finger press a little bit here just to hold that part down, but I don't want to press it up here because I want to easily be able to get my needle under there when I move to the next part of that. So that's what you will be doing to the flying geese units. You'll put 4 together, and then for the 2 fabrics that you're gonna extend out into the border, you would go ahead and make a double unit. Now for what I am doing with my flying geese is I am creating my background, because I know what from the template what my background size needs to be, and I have my 2 pieces here that I'm going to sew on. I've taken the white sew line pencil, I've marked across that, and I'm going to put that right in those corners. I want to drop a pin in, and again with this whole pinning, when you pin like this, your fabric can slide and it kind of gets off and pulls the corners. So again, I go straight down and then I turn and pin it. So let me drop this to my sewing machine. And I have the Sew Steady mat on here, so I wouldn't necessarily need to mark it. I marked it more for all of you so that you could see what I'm doing. But if you have the Sew Steady mat on your machine, you would not need to mark this at all. And the other flying geese that I did not mark because I have the mat. Now you want to push that point right up against your needle gently, just barely up against the needle, and start sewing. And that will keep it from pushing the fabric away and also for knotting it up on the end. So now I'm simply going to sew straight down, and if you notice down here, it's starting to come up on the screen. I am watching this point so that I'm staying right on the line and not worrying about where my needle is, because as long as that is right there and I went off the point exactly where I needed to. Again, I use leaders and enders. That keeps my thread from knotting. And at the end, and I get that bird's nest kind of thing going on. So now I am going to use my ruler, and I will be taking a 1/4 inch. Most of the time I eyeball this, but I'm going to be reusing. I lined it up at a 1/4, right on that 1/4 inch line, and I'm going to cut that off. And I'm using my ruler this time because often I just eyeball it, but I'm going to make some housewarming, some Christmas gifts and things. So now I can take all of these half square triangles that I cut off, and I can do half square triangles. I can make a small quilt. I can add them to another quilt that I'm working with. I plan on making some pot holders and some mitten kind of thing, pot holder mittens and things like that out of these half square triangles. So I actually measured this time so that, yes, you waste on this, and there is the no waste method too, but I decided I wanted to use these for gifts. So now I've sewn this. I'm going to set my seam, and I'm going to press this seam, and again, no ironing, just pressing. All right, then I will put this one on this side, and I always sew from the top here. It doesn't bunch as much, and this point doesn't try to work its way down and sink into the hole of your machine. So again, we'll go over, and it should overlap. I know I've had that question before. It overlaps. Did I cut something wrong? And the answer is no. It's supposed to. So again, I'm sewing directly down that line, and I am keeping my eye down here on the point. And again, when I get close to the end, my hand is over here keeping, my fabric tight as it goes all the way through, so I don't get that left or right pull with my fabric. I've mentioned that a number of times, but I know that people come in later in the projects and don't always hear that. So again, I am going to take my ruler. I will line that up on the seam line. And sorry, I didn't flip this. So I lined it up on the seam line. Open that up, save that for my projects, and then again I just press up against that and hold my iron in place, and I have my flying geese for that project. So you will again get all of those made. Then I have my 16 patch that will go in the center of my star, and I have it all together, but I wanted to share with you how I pin. I kind of came across this when after I broke a needle into my sewing machine, which is not a good thing to do. It's quite costly, because I thought, sure, I can drive over the pins, but it wasn't good for my machine. But I still wanted to connect with keeping my seams together and not having to pull my pin out up here. If I pinned it here, I would be pulling my pin out when it was up here, so it has this much space to move in that seam line. So I figured, well, I wanted it taut on both sides. It's in there, so I go 1/8 of an inch or a little bit more, and I cross over from the right side to the left side. That way, as I am sewing, I can take a stitch, and sometimes two, into my seam or past my seam, and it's not going to go anywhere. Then I can pull my pin and keep going. So I'll share with you that seam at this point. So I've got that right there, and I'm coming up on my seam, and I've taken a stitch over the seam, removed my pin, and that way I can keep there. I was able to take 2 stitches. Here I've gone 1 over before I have to remove my pin. Let's get that back lined up there on the corner. All right. So I can open that up. Let's get rid of and I have my 4 patch completed, and all of my corners are matching up. They're a little hard to see with the dark fabric, but there I have my 16 patch. Again, I'm going to set my seam, and then again I'm just going to hit the edge so that's nice and flat, and let my iron sit. And again, I didn't exaggerate today, but I'm lifting up and moving it forward. And so there's my 16 square patch for the center of the second block on that. So perfect. That is quite a few flying geese to make for this week, and that should keep you a little bit busy for that, and then we'll keep moving on for the next block. We're starting to move away from the simple blocks and the easier blocks into the more difficult, and then once we get into the little bit more difficult, that takes a little bit more finesse with the templates, as well as our curved sewing and blocks that you may or may not have made before within your quilting experience. So with that in mind, thank you for today. And if you have any questions, again, please put them in the forum if you are on the Quilt Show. If you are not, if you go to YouTube, there is a place for you to make comments, and you can ask your questions there, and I will get back to you on that. And of course on YouTube, if everyone can see your question as well as the answer given, and or you may email me, and that's perfectly fine too. I'm getting really pretty good at this quilting by text and email and FaceTime. So anyway, you have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and I will see you back here live next Saturday. Thanks. Bye-bye.